when the woman who should have been off limits became the only person who ever truly saw me, everything I thought I knew about love shattered and rebuilt itself in her hands. I never imagined that the person who would save me from the worst pain of my life would be exactly the one I should have avoided. She was his mother, and I was falling in love with her. Sometimes the right mistake is the only thing that makes sense. When she looked at me in that cafe with a genuine concern he had never once shown, I knew my life was about to be divided into before and after that moment, and there was no going back. I was sitting on the floor of my apartment when she knocked on the door. I wasn't expecting visitors. I didn't want visitors. For 3 days, I'd been drifting through this dim apartment like I was made of smoke. I hadn't eaten properly, hadn't showered, hadn't answered messages. The breakup had emptied me out in a way I didn't know was possible. He had destroyed me slowly. Sharp words disguised as jokes, absences explained by work, promises that evaporated before they ever became real. And then Diana appeared. I opened the door barefoot, wrapped in an oversized sweatshirt, my hair pulled into a collapsing bun, my eyes swollen and raw. She stood there, impeccable as always. Beige wool coat, blonde hair cascading over her shoulders with that impossible polish. A faint cloud of expensive perfume drifting in with her like the promise of a better life. "I know you don't want to see anyone," she said before I could speak. "But I didn't come as his mother. I came as someone who cares about you." My chest tightened. She stepped inside without waiting for permission. Carrying 2 shopping bags, she placed on the counter. Fresh bread, cheese, fruit, that outrageously overpriced organic juice she knew I loved but never bought for myself. "You need to eat," she said, meeting my gaze with those blue eyes that saw right through everything. "And you need company, even if you don't want to admit it yet." I tried to answer, but my voice broke on the first sound. Tears spilled again, uninvited, uncontrollable, humiliating. She didn't hesitate. She wrapped her arms around me in a firm, grounding hug, the kind that melts the last bit of strength you were pretending to have. I crumbled against her, sobbing into the soft fabric of her coat like a child. "He doesn't deserve your tears," she whispered into my hair. Something in her voice made me freeze. Too personal, too raw, too dangerous. When I pulled back, she was still studying me, but it wasn't the maternal gaze I was used to. Something else flickered there, something that made heat curl low in my stomach. "I'm going to make us some coffee," she said softly. "And you're going to tell me everything. Not about him, about you." She stayed all afternoon, and then she stayed until the sun dipped behind the buildings. We talked about my dreams of opening my own cafe, about the college program I dropped out of because he told me it was a waste of time, about the version of myself I buried so he'd love me more. Diana listened like no one ever had, completely present, no interruptions, no judgment, no quick fixes, just a woman witnessing me, fully and gently. And the more she listened, the more I unraveled, as if years of silence were finally allowed to escape. "You know he learned that from me, right?" she said eventually, voice so low I almost missed it. I blinked. "What?" "The art of suffocating the people we love." She stared into her coffee cup. "His father did that to me, and without even realizing it, I taught my son to do the same." A shadow crossed her expression, deep, old, full of guilt she carried like a stone in her chest. "It's not your fault," I murmured. She lifted her eyes. In that moment, her sadness and beauty collided into a force that almost knocked the breath out of me. And it's not yours either, she said, but you're still punishing yourself as if it were. The truth of that split something open inside me. And then she did something unexpected. She reached across the table and touched my hand. Just a light brush of her fingertips on my knuckles, but my skin ignited beneath it. You deserve to be seen, she whispered. Truly, completely. I should have pulled away. I didn't. I stared at her graceful fingers resting on mine, at the gentle certainty in her eyes. She withdrew her hand too quickly, as if startled by her own boldness. I should let you rest, she said, standing. I wanted to tell her not to go. The words caught in my throat. That night, sleep avoided me, like it was ashamed to be near me. I lay awake replaying every detail. The warmth of her hand, the depth of her voice, the way her eyes lingered on me just a second too long. It was wrong, completely wrong. She was my ex's mother, 20 years older. The woman who used to send me home with leftover lasagna and advice about sunscreen. But when I closed my eyes, it wasn't him I remembered. It was her. 2 days later, she showed up again, unannounced, holding a toolbox. You mentioned your faucet was dripping, she said. I came to fix it. She was in jeans and a fitted long-sleeved black top, hair in a low ponytail, minimal makeup. Somehow, that made her even more beautiful, unshielded, real. You know how to fix faucets? I asked as she knelt by the sink. She smirked. Divorce teaches you many things. I leaned against the counter, watching her hands, steady and sure as she worked. Something about her competence, her independence, the quiet confidence she carried. It sent a strange ache through me. There, she said at last, standing. Not a drop. We were close. Too close. The kitchen felt smaller than usual. Hot, with the tension hanging between us. Thank you, I whispered. You're welcome. Neither of us stepped back. Her gaze dropped to my mouth for a fraction of a second. I felt the air change, thicken, pulse, with something neither of us wanted to acknowledge. She lifted a hand, slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal. She brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. Her fingers grazed my cheek, warm and trembling. I leaned into it without meaning to. Her breath hitched. She snatched her hand back like she'd touched fire. I need to go, she said, voice barely steady. She left in a rush. I stood there, touching the spot where her fingers had been, my pulse thundering. Days passed. No messages, no call, silence heavy enough to bruise. Then Friday night, I found myself driving toward her house, as if some invisible thread were pulling the wheel from my hands. She opened the door, holding a glass of wine. When she saw me, her breath caught. I started. She waited, tense, vulnerable. I needed to see you, I said. She closed her eyes, long lashes trembling. When she opened them, they glowed with something I couldn't read. Come in. The house was dim, warm, intimate. Candles, soft music, the faint scent of lavender. A setting too tender for two people trying not to cross a line. She poured me wine. Our fingers touched, and this time neither of us flinched. Why did you come, Isabella? She asked quietly. Because I can't stop thinking about you. Silence, long, terrifying. Me neither, she admitted finally. Her voice was a soft break. And it's killing me. Why? I whispered. Because you were my son's girlfriend. Because you're young. Because I shouldn't feel this. She swallowed. But I do. Then what do you feel? Her lips trembled. I've wanted to kiss you since the day in the kitchen. The world stopped spinning. Then kiss me, I whispered. She didn't. But she didn't step back either. We hovered on that knife edge, our breaths merging, reality twisting into desire so sharp it hurt. "This is crazy," she said. "I know. You'll regret it. Maybe. I will regret this," she breathed. "Maybe," I echoed. A broken laugh escaped her. "Why are you doing this to me?" "I'm not doing anything," I said, cupping her face so she had to see me. This was already happening. Her eyes glistened. "He'll hate us. He already hates me, and he never loved me. But you see me, Diana. And I see you," she whispered, voice shaking with truth she'd never meant to confess. She was seconds from kissing me, seconds from giving in. Then the doorbell rang. We froze, and when she opened it, he was standing there. Everything imploded. What followed? The confrontation, the accusations, Diana's fear, her desperate attempt to protect me by pushing me away. It carved through both of us like a blade. The door closing behind me that night felt like the world ending. 2 weeks of silence followed. Real silence, bone deep. I mourned, like she'd died. Then life decided to twist the knife deeper. I ran into her at the supermarket, rain in her hair, no makeup, basket in hand, and when I whispered, "I miss you," she answered, "Me too." Then she walked away. Again. I thought that was the end, until my phone rang late one night. Her voice, fragile, breaking. "I just needed to hear your voice." I grabbed my keys before she could stop me. She told me not to come, that she wouldn't be able to control herself, that it was dangerous for both of us. But when she finally whispered, "Come, please," I flew. Her house glowed with firelight. She sat on the sofa, staring into the flames, like a woman unraveling. When she looked at me, I saw it all. Fear, longing, surrender. "I'm done," she said. "Done pretending I can forget you." Diana stood. Her hands trembled. "I fell in love with you," she said, voice cracked open and honest. "And I'm so afraid, but I can't keep running." I crossed the room. And finally, after months of restraint and fear and near misses, we kissed. For real, deeply, desperately, beautifully, like every moment before had been leading to this one. Her hands tangled in my hair. Mine gripped her waist. We cried and laughed into each other's mouths because the relief was too big, the emotion too wild. We collapsed onto the sofa, foreheads pressed together, breathing the same air. "Is this real?" she whispered. "Yes," I said. "And I'm not letting you run again." She smiled through her tears. "I won't." We talked until dawn, about everything, about the future, about fear, about love. She wanted to take me traveling. I wanted to build something new of my own. We imagined a life that, weeks earlier, had felt impossible. As the first light bled through the windows, she stroked my cheek and whispered, "I love you." And for the first time in my life, those words felt like truth. "I love you too," I said. We stayed wrapped around each other, the fire flickering low, the world outside irrelevant. Because sometimes love doesn't arrive politely. Sometimes it crashes through the wrong door, wearing the wrong face, at the wrong time. But it arrives, and when it does, you follow it, even if it leads you exactly where you were never supposed to go. So I hugged her tighter, and finally, after so long, I breathed. The air around us felt warmer somehow, as if the house itself understood that something fragile and sacred had settled into place between us. Diana exhaled against my shoulder, her breath shaky, almost like she hadn't allowed herself a full inhale in years, and was only just remembering how. Her fingers slid slowly up my back, tracing the soft cotton of my shirt, as if memorizing the shape of me. "I can't believe this is real," she murmured. "I keep waiting to wake up." "You're awake," I whispered, "and I'm right here." She pulled back just enough to look at me. Her eyes, still damp, still reflecting the firelight, held something deeper now, something that made my chest tighten. It wasn't just relief or desire, it was recognition. She brushed her thumb across my lower lip, tentative, reverent. "You have no idea what you've done to me," she said softly. "How long I've been holding my breath." "Then keep breathing with me," I said. Her jaw tensed at the emotion catching in her throat, but she nodded. She rested her forehead against mine, her hands cupping my face with a tenderness so fierce it almost hurt. For a long moment, we stayed like that, silent, intertwined, two people clinging to something that felt both impossible and inevitable. Eventually, she inhaled, slow and steady, grounding herself. "Isabella," she said quietly, "I don't know how to live this yet, any of it. I feel like I'm stepping into a life that isn't mine, yet somehow feels more mine than the one I've been living." "It is yours," I said, "or it can be." Her eyes fluttered shut. "I want it to be. God, I want it to be." She slid her hand down to my waist, pulling me gently back against her chest. "But I'm terrified of what comes next." "Then we figure it out one step at a time. What if the next step breaks everything? Then we make a new everything." She huffed a laugh that was half sob. "You make it sound so simple." "It isn't," I said, "but you're worth the complexity." She stared at me as if trying to believe that. No, as if she needed to believe it. Her fingertips traced the line of my jaw, then drifted to the collar of my shirt, her touch gentle but undeniably intimate. "I want you close," she whispered, "but I also want to protect you. Those two things don't go together easily." "You don't have to protect me from this," I said. She shook her head. "I want to protect you from me." I slid my hand up her arm until it rested over her heart. "You're the safest place I've ever been." Her breath shuddered, and she leaned in, pressing the softest kiss to the corner of my mouth, a kiss that wasn't asking permission so much as seeking courage. "Stay," she whispered. "I'm not leaving." She pressed her cheek to mine and held me tighter, as if anchoring herself to a truth she'd spent years avoiding. Outside, the early morning light grew stronger, nudging at the edges of the room, but she didn't move. If anything, her arms tightened around me with a kind of quiet desperation, like daylight threatened to unravel what we had created in the dark. After a while, she eased back, just enough to really see me, to study the woman she had finally allowed herself to want. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to listen without trying to fix it." "Okay." She took a breath that looked heavy. "I don't trust myself yet." My stomach tightened, not with fear, but with understanding. "Because of him? Because of your past?" "All of it," she said. "I spent so many years bearing what I wanted that now wanting something feels like a warning sign." Her voice softened, "Even when that something is beautiful." I touched her cheek. "Then we go slow." Her eyes warmed. "Slow," she repeated, like she was testing the word. "I can do slow." But then her hand slid to my waist, fingers curling at my hip, and her lips brushed mine again, soft, lingering, unmistakably hungry. "Slow," she whispered, "doesn't mean distant." "Never distant," I murmured. Her next kiss was deeper, more certain, the kind of kiss that said she had stopped fighting herself, at least for this moment. Her palms framed my face, her thumbs stroking my skin, like she was rediscovering parts of herself she thought had vanished years ago. When she finally pulled back, breath warm against my lips, she whispered, "I don't know what happens after today, but I know I don't want this to end." "It doesn't have to." She nodded, pressing her forehead to mine again. "Then stay with me. Not just this morning, not just now. Stay." in my life. I will, I said. Her eyes shimmered, and she smiled, small, raw, terrifyingly hopeful. Then I guess, she whispered, we're really doing this. The words hovered between us, fragile and electrifying, like the first step onto a frozen lake. You don't know whether it will hold, but you move anyway, because stillness hurts more. I felt her breath against my lips, warm and unsteady. She didn't pull away. She didn't rush forward either. She stayed exactly there, suspended in the space where everything was changing and nothing was certain yet. Her fingers tightened slightly at my waist. Isabella, she murmured, almost like a confession. I don't remember the last time I wanted something just for myself. You can want me, I said softly. For yourself. Her eyes closed, as if my words were too much and not enough at the same time. She rested her forehead against my temple, her voice barely audible. I want you in ways I don't even know how to say. Then don't say it, I whispered. Just feel it. Her hand slid slowly up my back, slow enough to ask permission, firm enough to show she wasn't taking it back. She breathed me in, her lips brushing my skin, a whisper of warmth down my neck. Her touch was careful, reverent, almost trembling. The kind of touch that came from someone who had spent years holding herself still. I turned my head and kissed the edge of her jaw, light as a sigh. She inhaled sharply, not in alarm, but in relief. Isabella, my name broke on her tongue. I'm here, I whispered. I'm not going anywhere. Her fingers curled into the fabric of my shirt as if anchoring herself. Slowly, she lifted her face, her blue eyes searching mine with a question she didn't need to speak. I answered by slipping my hand along her cheek, guiding her gently toward me. Our lips met again, this time without hesitation, without apology. Her kiss was deeper now, steadier, tasting of new beginnings in all the fears she was finally willing to face. She pulled me onto her lap, her hands settling at my hips in a soft but certain hold. The shift brought us chest to chest, breath to breath. Her heartbeat was frantic beneath my palm, quick little thuds against my fingertips. I feel like a teenager, she whispered against my lips, laughing shakily. A ridiculous, infatuated teenager. Good, I murmured. You deserve to feel something new. Her laugh broke into a sigh as I kissed her again, guiding her back into the warmth of the cushions. The blanket slid down around us, pooling at our waists. Morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and golden, touching her face in a way that made her look almost unreal. She looked up at me like I was something she'd never expected to find again. I forgot what desire feels like when it's not tied to obligation, she whispered. I forgot what desire feels like when it's not tied to fear, I said. Her hands slid along my sides, moving slowly, exploring gently, but with a courage building by the second. She breathed out a soft sound, half sigh, half wonder, when her fingers brushed beneath the hem of my shirt. Not grabbing, not pulling, just touching, asking, learning. Her thumb pressed lightly at my waist, and I trembled, unable to hide it. Her eyes widened with something warm and hungry. Do I make you feel that? Yes, I whispered. You do. A blush rose in her cheeks, faint but visible, and something about that small, vulnerable reaction nearly undid me. She wasn't performing. She wasn't controlling. She wasn't trying to be anything except the woman she truly was, stripped of duty and expectations. I don't want to rush this, she said, brushing her lips along my jaw. I want to feel every moment. So do I. She exhaled shakily, her lips ghosting down my neck, each kiss soft enough to make my heart trip over itself. Her fingers traced the line of my spine, lingering at the small of my back where she tugged me just a little closer. "Tell me if this is too much," she murmured. "It's not enough." She let out a soft, trembling laugh. "You're going to ruin me. Maybe you need to be ruined," I whispered. "In the right way." Her breath caught, and she dragged me into another kiss. Hungrier now, deeper, her hands sliding up my ribs with a tenderness that made my skin warm from the inside out. But then, something shifted in her shoulders, something tense, abrupt, conflicted. She broke the kiss, her forehead pressing against my chin as she caught her breath. "Wait," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Just wait." I froze instantly, my hands going still on her shoulders. "Are you okay?" Her fingers curled into the couch cushion, grasping for steadiness. "I want this. God, I want this. But if we move too fast, if we cross every line at once, I'm afraid I'll lose myself in it." She swallowed. "And I want to be fully present with you, not panicked and reckless." I stroked her cheek, guiding her gaze to mine. "Then we slow down. We don't have to rush anything." A breath left her, fragile and relieved. "Thank you." I brushed my lips against hers softly, offering only gentleness. "I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm here to be with you." She leaned into my touch, as if it were the first kind she'd ever trusted. "I'm falling for you so fast," she whispered. "Faster than I ever meant to." "Then fall," I said. "I'll catch you." Her shoulders shook, not from fear, but from the realization she wasn't alone in this anymore. She wrapped her arms around me and held me tightly, burying her face in my neck. "Stay," she whispered again. "Stay until I don't feel like I'll break apart." "I'm staying." She breathed in slowly, deeply, as if filling her lungs with a new life. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "I can feel it, and I'm ready for all of it." Her fingers tightened at my waist, not with fear now, but with certainty. "So am I," she whispered, and she kissed me again, gentle, lingering, full of promise. Her lips stayed on mine in a way that felt like a vow, not loud or dramatic, but quiet and deeply certain. A kind of certainty I wasn't used to. When she finally pulled back, she kept her hand at my cheek, her thumb stroking slowly, like she needed the reassurance of touch as much as I did. The house felt different now, warmer, more alive, like it had been waiting for this moment as much as we had. Outside, rain had begun again, soft and steady against the windows, the kind of rain that made the world feel small and private, closing in around only the two of us. Diana glanced toward the sound, then back at me with a faint smile that tugged at something deep in my chest. "You know," she whispered, "I forgot what it felt like to want someone's presence this much. Not their approval, not their expectation, just them." I let my forehead touch hers. "I want your presence too." She laughed quietly, a breathy, almost disbelieving sound. "You're going to make me melt." "Then melt," I said softly. "I'll hold you." Her eyes softened in a way that wasn't lust, wasn't fear, just tenderness, raw and unguarded. She pressed a small kiss to the corner of my mouth, then one to my chin, then down the line of my throat, each one slower than the last. But her hands weren't rushing. She wasn't devouring me or losing control. She was savoring, exploring gently, letting her confidence rebuild itself moment by moment, breath by breath. Her lips trailed along my collarbone before she paused and rested her cheek against my chest. Her arms wrapped around my waist, holding me close, not as a lover hungry with desire, but as a woman who had finally allowed herself to long for something she believed she wasn't allowed to have. I held her too, stroking her hair, feeling her relax into me. The rain, the fire, her warmth. It all blended into something almost surreal. After a long stretch of quiet, she spoke into my skin. "I'm afraid of what this will cost me." I didn't answer immediately. I wanted to understand the tremor beneath her words. "What are you afraid of losing?" I asked gently. She shifted, enough to look at me. "Control," she said. "Stability." The version of myself I've been performing for so long, even I started to believe she was real. "And that version of you, is she who you want to be?" She hesitated. The truth shimmered in her silence before she spoke. "No." "Then maybe letting her go isn't losing anything," I said. "Maybe it's finally gaining something." Her eyes glistened. "You make it sound so beautiful." "I'm not dressing it up. It is beautiful." She cupped my face again, thumb brushing my lower lip, as if trying to anchor herself. "You're making me brave," she whispered. "You've always been brave," I countered. "You just finally have someone to be brave with." The words landed deep. She kissed me again, longer this time, more deliberate, her hands sliding up my sides until her fingers rested beneath my shoulder blades. Her touch wasn't trembling now. Confidence was returning, slowly, naturally, as if intimacy was a language she once spoke fluently and was now remembering. When she pulled back, her lips were slightly parted, breath warm on my face. "I want to show you something," she said softly. "What is it?" She took my hand and stood, leading me quietly through the dim house. We passed the living room, the hallway, the closed door to her son's old room. She hesitated there for half a second, a shadow of old pain flickering across her face before she kept walking. At the end of the hall, she opened a door I had never seen before. A soft click, a warm glow. It was her art studio. I hadn't even known she had one. The room was flooded with natural light from a skylight, even with the rain outside. Paintings leaned against every wall. Landscapes, portraits, half-finished canvases with bold strokes of color. Brushes sat in jars, palettes scattered on the work table. A faint scent of turpentine hanging in the air. I turned to her slowly. "Diana, I didn't know you painted." She looked embarrassed, almost shy. "Nobody knows. Not really. I stopped showing people a long time ago." I stepped closer to a canvas. An unfinished portrait of a woman sitting by a window. The figure wasn't complete, but the emotion in it was unmistakable. Longing, quiet longing. A soul leaning toward something just out of reach. "It's beautiful," I said. "It's painful," she corrected, "because it's honest. More honest than I ever let myself be." She took my hand again, her fingers slipping between mine with a natural ease. "I bring people into my house," she said, "but no one comes in here." "Why me?" I asked quietly. She lifted my hand to her lips, kissing the back of it with slow, trembling care. "Because you see me, and I want you to see all of me, even the parts I buried." Emotion swelled in my chest. I stepped closer, sliding my arms around her waist. She relaxed into me, her hands resting at the small of my back. "Show me everything," I whispered. "Not just the art. You." Her eyes softened, vulnerability and desire blending into something intensely intimate. "I will," she said, "but slowly, at my pace. I wouldn't want it any other way." She leaned in, kissing me gently, soft, deliberate, full of a new kind of trust. The kind that grows not from passion alone, but from opening a door you swore you'd keep locked forever. In that studio, surrounded by pieces of her soul laid bare, something between us deepened. Not rushed, not frantic, rooted, real. She pressed her forehead to mine. "You're changing everything," she whispered. Maybe everything needed to change. She let out a breath that sounded like surrender and relief and desire, all at once. "Stay with me in this room for a little while," she said, brushing my lips with hers. "Let me show you who I am when no one's watching." "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." Her hands slid up my arms, drawing me closer, and the next kiss she gave me was deeper than any before. Slow, soft, and full of the beginning of something neither of us could take back. Her hands stayed at my arms, warm and steady, grounding me as much as they were grounding herself. The studio felt like a cocoon around us, quiet, intimate, painted with the fragments of her inner world. The rain tapped softly against the skylight above us, a gentle, rhythmic hush that made everything feel even more private. When she finally broke the kiss, her lips lingered near mine, as if parting had become something she had to learn slowly. Her breath brushed my skin, uneven, but full of intention. "I've hidden in this room for years," she whispered. "Every time life felt unbearable, I'd come here and pour everything I couldn't say into a canvas. Pain, loneliness, hope." Her eyes lifted to mine. "You're the first person I've ever wanted to share this space with." My chest tightened. "I feel honored." "No," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "I feel honored because you didn't run when you saw the mess." I glanced at the scattered brushes, half-clean palettes, canvases, leaning like restless secrets along the walls. "There's no mess in here." She laughed gently. "Oh, Isabella, there's mess everywhere. Here, in me." I held her waist and pulled her a fraction closer. "Mess doesn't scare me. Pretending everything is perfect does." Her expression shifted. Something like relief, something like longing, something like she wasn't used to being met so openly. Her hands slid up my arms to my shoulders, thumbs brushing the place where my neck met my collarbone. "I want to paint you someday," she said suddenly, almost startled by her own admission. I blinked. "Me?" She nodded, her lips curving in a small, slow smile. "You make me feel things I've never dared to put onto canvas. Light, movement, energy, a kind of life I haven't touched in years." Her fingers traced the line of my jaw with tender precision. "But I'm not ready yet. When I do paint you, I want to be fully honest, and I'm still learning how to be honest with myself." "That's okay," I murmured. "I'm not going anywhere." Her eyes warmed, something melting in her features. She rested her forehead against mine again, her fingers softly curling into my shirt. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Loving someone bravely." The word landed between us. Loving, quiet but undeniable. I slipped my hands up to her face. "Then we learn together." Her breath trembled at that, and she closed her eyes like the words were both terrifying and deeply comforting. "You make it sound possible." "It is." When she opened her eyes again, something had shifted. A kind of resolve, quiet, steady, not rushed by panic or desire, born from choosing instead of reacting. She took my hands in hers. "Come," she said softly. She led me to the largest canvas in the room, one covered in a wash of cool blues and pale golds, unfinished, but already aching with emotion. Brushstrokes curved in a shape that wasn't fully formed yet, but I sensed a person there, not quite visible, but unmistakably present. "Who is it?" I asked. Her lips parted, but she hesitated. "I think," she said slowly, "it was supposed to be me, or who I used to be, or who I wanted to be. I never finished it." I let my thumb brush hers. "It's beautiful." "It's lonely," she corrected. "But loneliness can be beautiful too," I said. "Because it means you still know you deserve connection." She stared at me, as if the words reached a place she never showed anyone. She lifted her hand toward the canvas, but stopped just before touching it, fingers hovering. "I started this painting the day my divorce papers were finalized," she murmured. "I thought I was beginning a new chapter, but I didn't actually live any differently. I stayed small, safe, silent." Her eyes flicked to mine. "You're the first person I've ever let interrupt that silence." I stepped closer, our shoulders brushing. "I don't want to interrupt it. I want to help you rewrite it." She inhaled shakily, and her fingers finally touched the dry paint. One small stroke. "Stay with me," she whispered. "In this moment. Here. I'm here." She let her hand drift down from the canvas to my waist, feeling the fabric of my shirt as if grounding herself. She leaned into me, her head resting against my shoulder, her arms slowly encircling me from behind. We stood there, looking at her unfinished painting. Two silhouettes reflected faintly in the glossy sheen of the canvas, hers pressing lightly into my back, mine steady and anchoring. "This," she whispered into my shoulder, "feels like the first moment of my life where I'm choosing myself and choosing you." My heart sank and soared at the same time. "Then, let it be the first of many." She squeezed me gently, her breath warming my skin. "I want that. I want all the moments that come after this." The rain softened outside, the world quieting. Her arms tightened around me, her cheek against my back, her heartbeat slow and steady, matching mine. For the first time in both our lives, it felt like peace wasn't something we were chasing. It was something we were creating. Diana's arms stayed wrapped around me, her cheek resting on my back, as if letting go too soon might undo whatever fragile miracle had just formed between us. I covered her hands with mine, feeling the subtle tremble there. Not fear anymore, but the weight of a door she'd finally allowed to open. After a long moment, she spoke softly into my shoulder. "Isabella, tell me something honest, something you've never said out loud." I let her hold me a moment longer before turning in her arms so we were face to face, close enough that our breaths mingled in the cool studio air. "Okay," I said. "Something honest." She waited, eyes steady, vulnerable, braced for whatever truth might come. "I thought I was unlovable," I whispered. "Not because you said anything, not because of him, just because life kept showing me versions of myself that never seemed to be enough. I thought I had to make myself smaller to be chosen." Her expression changed, softening, then breaking, then sharpening into something protective and fierce. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, lifting a hand to my cheek with heartbreaking tenderness. "You were never the one who needed to change." Her thumb stroked my skin slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. "If anything, the world should have expanded to fit you." The words hit somewhere deep inside me, a place that had been hollow for years. I didn't expect tears, but they came anyway, quiet, sudden, slipping down my cheeks in a soft stream. Diana's face crumpled when she saw them, not with fear, but with the ache of someone who finally understood the cost of silence. She cupped my face in both hands now, her forehead pressing to mine. "I want to be someone who never makes you shrink again." "You already are," I murmured. Her breath shook. She brushed the tear from my cheek with her thumb, and then kissed the spot gently, reverently, as if healing it. "Tell me something honest," whispered back. She froze, just slightly, then exhaled slowly. "All right." Her hands fell from my face to my shoulders, not pulling away, but grounding herself. She looked at the painting, then back at me, and her voice dropped into something raw and unfiltered. I thought my life was over, she said. Not literally, but emotionally. I thought I'd hit the last chapter, and it was going to be quiet and lonely and uneventful. She swallowed hard. And then you walked into my kitchen, crying and tear-streaked and breaking apart. And all I could think was, oh God, I recognize that girl. Because I was her once. I still am. My breath caught. She continued, softly. But then, you looked at me, not past me, not through me, at me, and I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Like maybe I wasn't done yet. Like maybe I could still matter to someone. You matter to me, I said. She let out a shuddering breath, as if those words loosened something that had been chained inside her for years. She wrapped her arms around my waist again, stepping closer until our bodies aligned, warm and steady. I'm terrified of messing this up, she whispered into my chest. Terrified of letting you down. Terrified of hurting you like he did. You won't, I murmured, stroking her hair. Not if you stay honest with me. Not if you stay present. I'm trying, she whispered. Every second, I'm trying. Trying is enough. We stood like that in the center of her studio, our shadows merging across the unfinished canvas, the rain softening outside as if the world were eavesdropping respectfully. Eventually, she pulled back and took my hand again, guiding me toward the open window. The air was cool, fresh, smelling faintly of wet earth. She rested her elbows on the sill, looking out at the gray sky. I don't want to hide this, she said quietly, but I'm not ready to be seen either. We don't have to decide today, I said. She nodded, relieved. I want to protect you from the fallout, from him, from the questions, from the judgment. And I want to protect you, I said, from the guilt you've been carrying alone. She turned, meeting my eyes again. This is the first time in years that my guilt hasn't felt heavier than my joy. Then lean into the joy. Her lips curved. Not quite a smile, not quite a cry. Something human and real and earned. She took my hand again, lifting it slowly, deliberately, as if asking without words whether she was allowed to kiss it. I nodded before she even finished the silent question. Her lips brushed the back of my hand, soft and certain. Her eyes closed as she did it, like the moment was holy. I want to take you somewhere, she whispered suddenly. Where? She stepped back, pulling me gently with her, through the studio toward the opposite wall. A door I hadn't noticed before, narrow and tucked between two towering canvases. It's another part of my life I've never shown anyone, she said. And if we're doing this, you should see it. What is it? She hesitated, fingers tightening around the doorknob. My beginnings, she said, before I learned to quiet myself. Then she opened the door. Inside was a small attic-like storage space, dim, dusty, smelling faintly of cedar. And along the walls, dozens of old paintings, younger versions of her art, bolder, wilder, unrestrained. And on the far wall, a portrait of a woman, dark hair, gentle expression, bare shoulders, a softness in her gaze that radiated tenderness. A woman Diana had loved once, or wanted to, or lost. My breath stopped. She closed the door behind us with a soft click. I need to tell you about her, she whispered. Before we move any deeper into this, I stepped closer, heart steady, open. I'm listening. Her chest rose and fell slowly, deliberately. She was the first woman I ever loved, Diana said. The air changed, thickened, gentled, softened somehow. Her eyes stayed on the portrait, not on me. There was history in them, and pain, and something almost like apology. I stepped closer, giving her space, but not distance. Tell me, I whispered. Her fingers reached out, barely grazing the edge of the painted frame, the way one might touch a memory too tender to hold fully. Her name was Claire, she said. We met in college. She was brilliant, loud, unapologetic, everything I wasn't allowed to be. She swallowed, eyes still fixed on the painting. I loved her in a way I didn't have language for back then. I didn't understand why being near her felt like breathing for the first time. I didn't understand why her laugh made me feel brave. My family certainly didn't help me understand. Her voice dipped, softer now. When I told my mother I might be in love with a woman, she called me confused. When I told my father, he told me I was destroying my future. She breathed in slowly. I was 20. I was terrified, and I let fear make my decisions. My heart ached. You walked away from her. Yes. Her voice cracked. I walked away from myself, too. She turned to me then, finally, and the vulnerability in her eyes was almost unbearable. I built a life around what was expected of me. A marriage, a child, a role. Her lips trembled, but I never stopped missing her. Not because I wanted Claire back, but because I wanted the version of myself I was when I loved her. The brave one, the honest one. I reached for her hand. She let me take it. And now? I asked softly. And now, she whispered, I see pieces of that old courage waking up again. Because of you. Her thumb stroked the back of my hand. But that's why I needed you to know. I can't build a new life on old secrets. You're not, I said. You're building it on truth. She exhaled shakily, her shoulders loosening as if something heavy had finally unclenched inside her. She looked around the small room, her hidden past made visible again, then back at me. I don't regret loving her, she said. I regret not choosing myself. I squeezed her hand gently. Then choose yourself now. Her breath caught, and choosing myself means choosing you. The simplicity of that sentence made my knees feel weak. I stepped closer, and she didn't move away. Instead, she pulled me into her arms, resting her head against my shoulder. I never thought I'd have another chance, she whispered. Not at love, not at joy, not at me. And yet you do, I murmured. Right here. She held me tighter, her breath warm against my collarbone. You're going to change my life, she said. I already feel it happening. You're going to change mine, too. We stood there in the quiet little room, surrounded by the ghosts of her younger self, the woman she used to love, the choices she made and unmade, and for the first time, none of it felt like a shadow hanging over her. It felt like a beginning. After a long moment, she pulled back and wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand, then laughed in that shaky, beautiful way she did when she was overwhelmed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to turn this into a confession booth. I'm glad you did. She looked at me, really looked, and something settled into place in her expression, a decision, a direction, a readiness. Come, she whispered. Let's leave this here. It's part of me, but it isn't all of me anymore. She intertwined her fingers with mine and led me out, closing the door softly behind us. Not to hide anything, but to honor it. When we stepped back into the studio, the air felt different, lighter, like she had finally walked out of a room she'd been trapped in for decades. She turned to me, brushing her fingers along my cheek. Thank you, she said quietly, for not running. I'm done running, I said. From this, from you, from myself. Her eyes softened, and she pulled me close, her forehead resting against mine. I don't know what our life will look like, she murmured. I don't know how people will react. I don't know what storms are waiting for us. Then we'll face them together. Together. She breathed the word like it was the first time she'd ever trusted it. I like the sound of that. She kissed me, soft, slow, lingering, like sealing a promise neither of us needed to speak. When she pulled back, she smiled. A real one, unburdened, brave. "Let's go back to the living room," she said. "I want to hold you somewhere warm." We walked out hand in hand, and for the first time, I didn't feel like her son's ex-girlfriend, or the girl who'd fallen apart in her kitchen, or the woman who'd stumbled accidentally into something forbidden. I felt like someone beginning a life she had chosen, with someone who had finally chosen herself too. Diana squeezed my hand gently as we stepped back into the soft glow of the living room. "This," she whispered, leaning her head against my shoulder, "feels like the real beginning." And as I pulled her into my arms, feeling her melt into me with trust she had never given anyone so freely, I knew she was right. It was the beginning of the life we would build. Not perfectly, not without fear, but honestly, and together. The end. If this story stirred something in you, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because trust me, the next story will break you open in a whole new way.